Yeah, so just a few days ago, recently, I finished The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And I don't know how I actually have the book. I got an ebook, but surprisingly, this book actually isn't about art. Not specifically anyway. And I knew this before I read the book. But instead, it's about this idea called resistance. It's like laziness. It's like fear. It stops you from achieving your goals and doing what you really want to do. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and in this review of The War of Art by Pressfield. So kind of at the beginning of the book, or somewhere in the book, I can't remember exactly, but he describes the idea of resistance, this like laziness kind of thing in your head, as like a satanic demon, that's trying to destroy everything and all your goals and all your dreams and anything that you've ever wanted to do. It doesn't really matter what exactly. You could be, wanting to start like a sport. You could be wanting to do a business or some kind of investment, or maybe even like art. Writing a book, drawing or something like that. But it doesn't really matter. I think this idea is really universal, and what he says, one of his lines is that you kind of have to imagine. And I hear this all the time. You have to imagine as if there's somebody working every single day to take all of that away from you, taking all of your goals away from you. And that's what he's saying here. The idea of resistance is the idea of this force that's stopping you. It's this force that's working against you and everything that you ever wanted to do. And so, unlike what the title suggests, it's pretty much a book about discipline, and beating your laziness. It tells you to show up every day, and do the work that you need to do. And actually, he tells this story in the book that I remember, actually. And the story is he's writing this book, not the War of Art in particular, but another book, his first book. And so he's writing the book, and it's taking him a very long time to write the book, months and months and months of hard work, hours every single day. He shows up every single day to do his work, from the time that he wakes up to the time that he's sleeping. He's writing, and he's getting this thing done, and it's the day that he finally releases the book and gets it published and gets it out there in the public, out there in the world. And his mentor tells him, and he had a mentor at the time, he was also another writer. His mentor told him on that very day to start his second book. It didn't even matter whether he worked whether he worked hours and hours on that first book. It doesn't matter whether he worked months. You still got You still got more work to do. You're never over. It's never over. So you can see the insane work ethic that this guy had, that wrote the book, Steven Pressfield. He worked a lot, and it didn't even matter whether he finished his first book or not. He just went on and wrote the second, kept on going. And even during this time, he was living very poorly, because he didn't have a job at the time. Not like wasn't making any money because he was writing. He was busy writing, and so he was working, I think, in a car or something. He was working in like a mobile home or something like that. It was very very poor, and he had almost nothing to live on. And so even after he finished his first book, he just went on and made his second. Didn't matter. And so I think another really big message of this book is pulling the trigger, taking action when it is necessary. Like, even if you're afraid, even if you're nervous, even if you're afraid that people are going to judge you, if you want to do it, you should just do it. It's just like the Nike motto, just do it, just start on whatever that you want to do. Don't let these fears hold you back. Like, for example, me actually making these videos, I was really nervous in my first video, which was, I think it was very bad, and that's to be expected, with my face on it, and I still am nervous right now. It's still weird speaking to a piece of glass in front of me, and it's not speaking to me. It's weird. If you've ever speaking in front of a camera before, it's weird. It's like, it's not a person, so they don't answer back. But when I made that first video, I did not feel ready. I did not feel completely comfortable in front of a camera, but you know what? I just showed up and I did the work. I did it anyway. It didn't matter if I was afraid or not, because that really just doesn't matter at all. And I did it anyway. Like I said, even now, turning on that camera and pressing record is still really uncomfortable and weird. But I hope as time goes on, I'll get better at it. And that's fine. It'll take time, but I'll get better, and it'll become less uncomfortable. But that's what it is. It takes time, and to have that fear go away, you have to start in the first place. And when you start, it's gonna be scary, and that's just the reality of it. Like my first video, I was really afraid, but in my second video, it was a little bit better. I wasn't as afraid, and I think I pressed the recording button a little faster. It didn't take as much time for me to do that. And I noticed that I was way more confident too in the way that I spoke and the way that I carried myself in front of the camera. And so I see big improvements, and I hope if you watch the video, I hope you see big improvements as well. And even now, I see big improvements now. I feel a lot more confident in front of this camera than I did in the first video. I'm still not perfect, and I don't think I am, but I still got a long way to go. But it's a lot better. I've improved a lot, and that's really cool to see. You don't have to be ready. If you're planning on doing something, you just gotta start, and the fear will go away as you continue. And sometimes the fear doesn't even go away. Here's another story that he mentioned in the book. He mentioned the story of this actor. His name was Henry Fonda. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was a very famous actor back a few decades ago in the 1900s. And even well into his acting career, when he was 70 years old, even after 40 years, 50 years of experience in front of a camera, he would still throw up before a stage performance. He would still throw up before a stage performance, even when he was 70 years old, after years and years of experience, decades of experience. It just shows that fear doesn't matter, and you have to overcome the fear. You have to continue, even if you feel that fear, and you have to ignore it, kind of thing. Fonda, he actually threw up before every single stage performance, every single one. And he kept going. It didn't matter whether he threw up or not, because he still went up on stage and did well. He still did it anyway. It didn't matter to him, because he still did it. His fear doesn't matter to him. And that's how you should carry yourself as well. Your fear shouldn't matter. You shouldn't think too much about your fear, because most of the time, what you're afraid of is actually not as bad as you think it is. I think a lot of the fear comes from here. It's not real. It's a lot of the pain that you're afraid of meeting. It's actually not there when you actually do the thing. Like doing this video is actually not as bad as I thought it would be. And another thing about fear, I think a lot of what people want to do, what they think they should do, is they should overcome their fear first and then act. But in reality, it's kind of weird. You have to act to get rid of your fear. You have to do the thing that you're afraid of to become not afraid of it. So you can't get rid of the fear in your head. You just have to do it, The fear's never going to go away, In some examples, like Henry Fonda, it never ever went away, even well into his acting career. But it will get better, hopefully. You just have to overcome the fear. It's not going to go away by itself. You have to act, and you got to do something about it. And so here's a quote from the book that I really liked, and it's where he said, "It's not the writing part that's hard. What's hard is sitting down to write. What keeps us from sitting down is resistance." And I really like his writing style, because it's just so concise and simple. But what he's saying here is that it's really hard to start, but once you get started, it's easy to continue. What's hard is sitting down to write. It's not the writing part. It's kind of like Newton's laws of motion, An object that that stays still. An object at rest stays at rest. But if something is in motion, it stays in motion. It's the idea of momentum. The hardest part is getting started. The hardest part is getting something to move. But once it gets started moving, it just rolls on its own. And so that kind of explains this idea of like taking action and pulling the trigger. And another great quote I'll pull from the book right now is, procrastination is the most common manifestation of resistance because it's the easiest to rationalize. We don't tell ourselves, I'm never going to write my symphony. Instead we say, I'm going to write my symphony, but I'm just going to do that tomorrow. So, you keep giving yourself hope that you're going to do it eventually. But if you don't do it now, it's likely that you won't do it then either. Whenever you're afraid of, you're probably never going to do it. Procrastination is such an evil thing. Because it gives you hope that you're going to do it, but if you don't do it now, you're probably not going to do it ever. So you just got to pull the trigger, Learn to pull the trigger. Even if you're afraid, even if you think you're not ready for it, just do it. Just pull the trigger. It's so easy to tell yourself to do it later. It's so easy. But what's the hardest thing to do is to tell yourself to do it now, but that's what you have to do. Because eventually that later will become your now, and then if you continue to procrastinate, you'll continue to tell yourself that you'll do it later, and you'll do it later. But eventually those laters become the now, and you continue with the cycle, and then nothing ever happens. And so that's kind of a good summary of The War of Art and all of its great ideas. And so actually it's a really great book, and I really recommend that you check it out if you ever get the opportunity to. All the ideas in here are very, very valuable, and I think if you've never read a book like this, it's definitely going to be one of the best books that you've ever read. And so I think with that, I think I'll end the video here, and I guess I'll see you next time. Take care.